Hi, welcome and welcome back. I hope you're doing well. When it comes to trauma, a lot of times the question's asked, well, what's wrong with you? Or what's wrong with this person? However, a more holistic approach or salutogenic approach asks the question, what has happened to this person? Or what is still happening to this person? And this could apply to you, or it could even apply to the narcissist in your life. Either way, everyone has a backstory, and it's worth consideration to help understand and be able to make sense of narcissistically abusive relationships. I thought we could talk about that today and take a little bit of a deep dive, but that's going to involve a little bit of time travel. So come on back with me a handful of decades and imagine that you're 9 years old, and imagine that your father has gone to a pool hall to shoot some pool, and he, during that time, runs into a man that he knows, and they get into an argument in the pool hall, and the argument escalates into a fight, and your dad defeats the other man in the fight and sends him running off with his tail between his legs. And the other man goes and gets a gun and goes back to find your dad to get revenge. And he finds your dad, confronts him, shoots him, and kills him immediately. Now, this man has been prosecuted, he's been punished for his crimes, but he also has a family. And not only that, he has children. And those children, some of them, happen to go to school with you. And as we all know, kids can be very cruel. So maybe those children even brought it to your attention or reminded you of the fact that their daddy killed your daddy. And you had to deal with that during the course of your school day. Meanwhile, you and your siblings and your now widowed mother have not gotten any help. Your mother has chosen to march forward with her children in tow and to not seek out any kind of counseling, any kind of therapy, nothing at all. And essentially, you've all been kind of forced to, if not sweep it under the rug, to push it to the side. And no one's really had a chance to process things. And not only that, there's a lot of emotional undercurrent. There's a heavy emotional undercurrent in the household. Your mom might go through periods where she's angry, or where she's sad, or maybe depressed or somber, or she lashes out at you, or is maybe physically abusive, if not verbally abusive. And no one gets any help. And although your mother goes on to remarry, and even goes on later to date, you have been without a father figure, especially during those critical developmental years in your life. And then, you've had maybe some older male figures in your life, but who really didn't have that grounding energy or that strength or that authority that your dad had. And you also are left without any answers or without the opportunity to have any closure, really. It happens. Did you know that there was a day and time when being called crazy or being labeled as an idiot were actually terms that were scientifically based and that were utilized to describe people's mental states? And, in certain communities, that was just not going to happen, just unacceptable. And no one really wanted to bear that burden or to have that stigma attached to them or their family. And so a lot of people did not seek help for that reason. And isn't it interesting that narcissists, even nowadays in 2021, love to refer to their targets as crazy or love to project that onto them? But there was a day and time when that was really almost like a bad word, to be called crazy or to be labeled as an idiot. Clearly, those are not considered to be scientific terms. Specifically, idiot is not considered to be a scientific term anymore, but at one point it was. And there are still a lot of there's still a lot of stigma, a lot of shame, a lot of negative associations with going to get therapy or going to get healing in certain communities and certain families. And imagine carrying all of that burden with you into your adulthood, along with the fact that you really have lacked having a male figure and that grounding in your life and that stability, or even that resolve, that resolution, those answers, that closure. And then you go on to have other relationships going forward, and you carry the burden of that whole situation, and you're angry, you lack the ability to really get in touch with or process your emotions, and you lash out, you rage, and much more, and go through periods of even depression, and just even having that hole or that emptiness from lacking that key figure in your life, missing your dad, not being able to really spend those key years with him, or even have him around to see your children. At any rate, that can really be a heavy burden to bear. And without any kind of support, any kind of therapy, any kind of outlet to be able to really deal with and process that, and instead being kind of forced to keep stepping or marching forward in life, and essentially not talking about it, not really dealing with it, it's kind of a recipe for disaster. A lot of people didn't want those labels within their community. They didn't want to be mocked. They didn't want to be ostracized or alienated. They didn't want to be locked up and have the key thrown away. And so a lot of those feelings of depression, sadness, or just even feeling like, just overly emotional were suppressed and stuffed. And that's how it was. Had an interesting discussion with my mom about that. Also, a lot of people, if they didn't see people in the mental health field who looked like them within their communities or otherwise, that was another reason that people did not seek help or were not feeling encouraged or inspired or motivated to do so. There was a time, actually, when that was very common. Everyone has a backstory. That backstory actually was my dad's backstory, and very, very sad. And not only that, but the fact that the accumulation of pain, shame, depression, sadness, and just the lack of help or healing ultimately led to patterns of toxic behavior and ultimately self-destruction, not just for him, but also for some of his siblings. A lot of them shared the same fate of self-destruction and just implosion, just an entire pocket of the family just self-destructed. Not to excuse or minimize or trivialize toxic behavior or rationalize it even, but everyone has a backstory. And hopefully when we take time to consider, if not understand or learn about the backstory of other people that we're dealing with, or even get in touch with our own backstory, because our own backstory may include trauma as well as the person who traumatized us. And it may help to bring some clarity to the situation and also help us to understand the areas where we maybe need to put more effort and attention to healing, if not growing, evolving, and really processing what we've been through. Do you know the backstory of the narcissist or toxic individual in your life? Comment below. I'd love to hear your experience and just what your thoughts are about that. You're not alone and you're not crazy. Know who you're dealing with, know who you are. Take care, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.